Next question. Why do you think there are so many problems and controversies around the Tuku system these days? What is going wrong? So,
these are related questions, right? The next two questions.
Okay,
yeah, maybe
okay.
just read it.
Et la question suivante, and the next question, which is related, the Tuku system seems to have started in Tibet with the Karmapas, and as much as it was about preserving a lineage, it was also about securing a position in the Mongol or the Chinese courts. Has this always been an element of the Tulku system, the continuation of power, alliances, or institutions?
Okay. Again, I wanted to. There has been a lot of questions related to this subject, and I chose to speak. Even though, again, this is big, so I may not manage to articulate everything. Recently, when I was in South America, someone also asked this. I think first we need to make a distinction between Tulku, which means avatar, as in, social media avatar, the same thing. Actually, I think it came from Sanskrit. And sometimes we use the word nirmanakaya. Okay, so distinctions between Tulku, the nirmanakaya or the manifestation, let's call it manifestation, and Yangsi, which I guess is translated as a reincarnation. I think earlier, remember we talked about West and East, how they will differentiate when they when they approach Buddha Dharma. This is another one, big one. The word reincarnation for the Europeans, for the Western mind, this word reincarnation must mean something to you that may be different. Generally, the Asians, especially philosophically speaking, there are a lot of differences actually between East and West approaching. And even even in Asia, like within how the Chinese think and how the Indians think also, I think is a different. Okay, so okay, one is methodology. Especially Indians, they, not just Buddhism, like Advaita, Charvaka, Mimamsa, all that philosophical system, one method they use quite vigorously when they discuss philosophy is by using Dembani, true truth. Whereas in the West, they may not necessarily spell out that in the relative truth is like this, in the ultimate truth is like this and that. Okay, so if you ask me first, reincarnation, Yangsi, do the Buddhists assert reincarnation on the ultimate truth? No. Buddhists don't believe in reincarnation on the ultimate truth. Even, of course, enlightenment, even if there is a phenomena that is above enlightenment, even that is milamtabu, jumatabu, like a dream, like an illusion. Now, relatively, they believe in Yangsi. So I need to tell you this first. I know it's a little technical and academical. So even me, when I talk to so-called scientists who revere people like Einstein, who said time is relative, but the same scientists I'm talking to, they say they don't believe in reincarnation. For me, it's a contradiction. Nagarjuna, It's a lot of writings. One of them, when he talked about Yangsi, reincarnation, okay? The term is something like this. Katun marme melongja, Michel Judang Sabun de, Pungpo Ningtam Jorwani, he's been eating too much sausage. Miforwayang Ketoja, I think so. Yeah. So Nagarjuna made a statement about Yangsi reincarnation. I won't go through all. Like he gave 8 examples. Like one is mirror reflection. One is one candle giving birth to the next candle.
Yeah.
When you light. You can't really say the second fire is the first fire. You can't also say they are different. That's how a Yangsi or reincarnation need to be understood. Completely, yeah. When we study Buddhist philosophy, there are few rules. And one very important rule is if you are establishing a relative truth, do not analyze too much. Because after analyzing, if you can't find anything, yes, no, then it's okay. But if you find something, you are not a good philosopher. This is what the Madhyamikan people will say. Okay, so that I just want to plant that in your head. Now next, nirmanakaya, manifestation. Nowhere is better explained in the whole Buddhist teachings about avatar than the Mahasandhi people. They are so good at explaining this. They say it's a bit like clear sky, full moon, clear lake, reflection of the moon in the lake. Moon has no intention to reflect itself in the lake. Even though lake has got nothing to do with the moon, it does have its sort of capacity to get reflection of the moon. Okay, no cloud, no trees, no cover, reflection of the moon, perfect. That's how the nirmanakaya works. So it is understandable when the Tibetans cry and say, we don't have a good karma to have a good tulkus these days. It kind of, I understand, I have a sympathy with that. Even though many of them, they don't know what they are saying. Okay, so I want to put that in your head before I answer this question. I want to answer these questions because I know this is an important issue, not just here, everywhere actually. Okay, now, reincarnation, Yangsi, is usually, broadly speaking, a being, continuation of a being. Like you are all reincarnation of your past life, basically, that's what I'm saying. You know the famous story about this guy chewing fish and then great Katayana saw, chewing, like sun or something like that. Now, Tulku, manifestation, not necessarily have to be a being. A breeze is a Tulku. Shooting star, if it helps you to understand shunyata, definitely. Anything can be manifestation of the Buddha. Now, a being continuation, even that in Tibet, and what I'm going to tell you perhaps will shock some of you. One thing's okay, reincarnation, okay, so his previous incarnation, now he is this, that, that's how people usually think. Not necessarily in Tibet. It's so complex. A big example I will give you. Two big examples. Jamyang Khyentse Chogyal, supposedly incarnation of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, mathematically speaking, doesn't work. Unless an extreme, what do you call it? Not miscarriage, what do you call it? Too early being born or conceived. Even that won't work. You have to conceive, you know. 2 months early conception. But that has never stopped Jamyang Khyentse Chogyal sort of stating here and there how he remembered being Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. Okay, that's one example. Second example is Jabji Dujum Jigdal Yeshe Doje. He was very well alive even when Dujum Lingpa, his previous incarnation, supposedly previous incarnation, was very much alive. Now, so on and so forth, I can give you 100 list if you want. Okay, but anyway, I just want to plant that in your head. Anyway, in Tibet, now, this is something you have to pay attention. In Tibet, after Tisong Gyutsen, I would say, I would argue, Dharma became so important. Just like how Ashoka did. Put so much emphasis on Dharma, something like a few hundred years before him in India, same thing. Big budget, national budget, 90% spent on Dharma. Yes, us, we appreciate Tisong Gyutsen. But even during his time, there were a lot of people against it. From the secular's point of view, one could argue you should have a sympathy with them. No budget on, like welfare of public, defense, art, music. What's wrong with this king?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's taught. There was actually accusation. He's totally deceived by this Indian, this magician. Yes. And that became even worse around the 12th century, when the lamas actually become a political leader. Now this is really, really complex, but I think it is important that at least those who are a little curious and sometimes get bothered by this current situation, the background. Dharma was very important for, let's say, for the elites, for maybe not definitely for the bourgeois. Mm-hmm. And so of course, every attention went there. Anyone who is associated with the Dharma get, more venerated, looked up. They're the model. And many kids in poor families, not necessarily out of renunciation mind or searching for the truth, but for the, everybody wants to be that model, right? So that has happened a lot. But I need to also tell you that patronage for the Dharma or religion is important also. One could argue that the decline of philosophical system like Buddhism or Jainism is probably because after about like Ashoka or whatever, then they didn't have much patrons. It does make difference, even if so-called secular government like America, when they took oath, presidential oath, they are touching Bible, it does have an influence. But the other side of this patron is there's going to be a lot of political problems and a lot of corruptions. and a lot of, mistrust. And you may be not necessarily guilty, but you get associated anyway. If today I'm a guru of Joe Biden, all Republicans will always find something wrong with me. They will find something. That's how it works. And this happened a lot in Tibet too. Especially after the 12th centuries, lamas had powerful patrons in China and Mongolia. Many lamas rushed to get the title from Chinese and the Mongols. Seals, outfits. Yes. Some of them were proudly written in their biographies. And things have become worse. Between the schools, they fought. There was a forced conversions too. Some schools actually waged war to the other schools. And many monasteries and many big labrangs meaning, the household of the Lama, they have a lot of subjects. Subjects pay tax. Many monasteries and labrangs have dungeons. Yes, all
Really?
of this. I'm sure, some of you know all this already. Because the power and the prestige and the wealth is, as you know, in the human history, it's always it's one of the most, especially power, is very, very, very addictive. There has always been a lot of gray historical accounts of the incarnations, succession of incarnations, especially among the very, very high lamas. And by the way, it's not everything is like, not good and doomed and, like sad. And there were so many great people like Milarepa, like Paltru Rinpoche, who really protest these things, who actually really, condemns these things. Many. And also, one has to say, these powerful tulkus or lamas or whatever, not always they did only bad things. They have also done a lot of good things. One has to say this. I hope it's not the protectors. They have some really powerful protectors, which I believe. I'm a very superstitious person. And not always it's very corrupted. One great example is the present Khyentse Rinpoche, who is still alive. The monastery, Palpung, is really, really powerful. It's a very big monastery. When the previous Situ Rinpoche died, they looked for the reincarnation, and then they found the present Khyentse Rinpoche, who was born in one of the most poor, poverty-ridden family, who have never even had in the whole family have never even ride a horse. That's like the Tibetan example of how poor you are.
Et donc, quand
They say they have never had family never had the experience of putting their feet in the, what do you call it? What? Yeah. Okay, I will tell you this. If you ask a sober Lama today about Yangsi and the incarnation, all that, how it goes around, some Yangsi, who is like a continuation of that being, does exist, they will say, but it's very, very rare. One such thing is Karmapa Tuzum Chempa and Karmapa Pakshi, the first and the second Karmapa. Supposedly, because at that time nobody was even interested in this. They were the first, So this boy came up and he just, he knew everything. It's like for you guys, if somewhere in Paris, as a child of some, maybe a father, Chinese, mother, I don't know, Algerian, but the child suddenly remembers everything, everything about Metteron. Everything. Metteron, right? Metteron. Or Victor Hugo. Doesn't matter, whoever. Even the French, the most skeptical people, you will have a hard time to not accept. So, a sober Lama will say such kind of Yangsi is very rare. So, in Tibet, there are few things that I need to tell you. There is a concept called Mande Tulku. Tulku, the manifestation, even Mande means not dead yet. So this exists. This practice exists. Also, the Tibetans have a beautiful idiom called Tsen Sol. Tsen Sol. Tsen Sol means offer the name. So there is actually such a beautiful term because there is a connotation. He or she may be not that real thing, but let's just label him. Yes.
Yes,
sometimes for a really good reason, by the way. Lot of these tulkus who got labeled as somebody's incarnation, they've done so many great things also. But this also gets corrupted a lot. Powerful patron's son usually gets labeled. Or previous incarnations, powerful brother or sisters, suddenly they get pregnant and then, oh, this is the incarnation here. We don't need to go and look for anywhere. Nepotism. This exists a lot. Anyway, I'm saying these things, all of these, and I'm sure some of you may have heard already, and some of you may be already at this point, you must be already a little bit suspicious. You should. But before I say this, let me give you encouraging news for you. There's an insurance policy here. Remember Tulku and Yangsi?
Vous vous rappelez, donc on parlait de Tuku d'un côté, Yangsi de l'autre.
Manifestation and the continuation. Mm-hmm. And remember, the manifestation also, if you can make your lake clear, you have made yourself available and ready to receive the reflection. So it's still very possible that we can get if we pray, aspire for, work for, make the lake clean, good chance to have a reflection of the moon. But I'm telling you these things. Because I believe, probably I'm wrong, but I believe that this is my way of protecting Buddha Dharma. Because I think it's better, I already gave you the example, half skeleton in my closet. I want to really, you, especially younger ones, newer the history and the reality of the Tibetan Buddhism. And I don't want you to find out before I reveal it. Because if you find out, it could be really disappointing for you. And then you might throw the baby with the water. And Dharma is so precious, it's so pristine, it's so clear, it's just, and it is, as I said already, for the West, you can really preserve Dharma. We paint ourselves very rosy, and then slowly you find out you will be really disappointed. I'm a good example. I grew up for a long time believing that West is just, that you actually care human rights, that you are very open-minded, objective, with Harvard, Oxford, Sorbonne, all of that. Oh my God, I used to be that. I even tried to study French in some school near Place de la Concorde. Yeah. But I realized you are as parochial as we Tibetans. And in fact, the Ivy League graduates are more narrow-minded, I've realized. So, yes, little disappointment. But, there's always Beethoven, Mozart, and all of that holds me. And also people like, Nietzsche, I'm actually drawing a tanka with a Jingme Lingpa sitting on all these great Western thinkers. But more importantly, about going back to Tulkus, I have to tell you this. Who is failing the Tulkus? I think mainly the Tibetan society themselves. We, the Tibetans, we are ruining the young Tulkus. And I don't know how that can be fixed, because it's just so difficult to fix this one. Lot of young, new Tulkus will become a casualty, I think, because of this bad sort of, upbringing of the Tulkus. Yeah. I'm not really, probably I'm boasting. I hope not. I will tell you one story. I don't know whether I'm a good Tulku, but I have to recalling, I think I'm so lucky to have, masters like Gyabje Tengku Khyentse Rinpoche. I will tell you something, it's so important. I wish the Tulkus will hear this, not you guys. For you, maybe it's not important. But for information, you should hear it. When I was young, in my 20s, I never really wanted to do teaching. And also the burden of Khyentse Chokyi Lodru's name was really heavy. So I asked Gyabje Tengku Khyentse Rinpoche, sometimes I feel just so discouraged, what do I do? And he gave me an advice with one example, which is just so special. The first one, he said, don't worry, you should pray to Khyentse Chokyi Lodru and Jamye Khyentse Wangpo to really, uphold their aspiration. What an incredible, just this short sentence. Because he's also saying, don't have a pride that you are them. But at the same time saying, pray to them so that you will, hold their whatever legacy. And then immediately he told me a story of Khyentse Chokyi Lodru. Khyentse Chokyi Lodru was in Kathok monastery, one big Nyingmapa monastery. Dzongsar, where Jamye Khyentse Wangpo used to stay, had another incarnation, I think falling from the stairs or something. So Dzongsar has the brother of Jamye Khyentse Wangpo who went to Kathok. And Kathok Situ is the nephew of Jamye Khyentse Wangpo. He basically forced Kathok Situ to send that incarnation to Dzongsar. So he went, Khyentse Chokyi Lodru went. After a few months, he went back to Kathok, and then Kathok Situ asked, so how is it, and all of that. And then Kathok Situ asked, where are you sleeping? Khyentse Chokyi Lodru said, Khyentse Wangpo's bed. Then Kathok Situ said, that must look like a stray mongrel sleeping on a human's bed. That was what Tengku Khyentse Rinpoche told me. these days, many young Tulkus, they think they are actually the incarnation of whoever the previous, and that is the problem. This, whatever I said about the Tulkus, this is the complexity of the Asian society. Now you see, it's so complicated. There's so much metaphor and the symbolism and all sorts of things. Okay, we better quickly go through all the other questions now.
So next question. We've been a sangha without any master for 5 years now. After Sogyal Rinpoche's parinirvana, we were advised not to seek out other masters, but to start transmitting the teachings. How can we reasonably transmit the teachings when we've only received a very embryonic training compared to the masters in our lineage?
I have to say this first. I have observed Rigpa, and Rigpa is, and I've always said Rigpa is important, generally for Buddha Dharma, and especially Buddha Dharma coming from the Tibetan lineage. And not only, Sogyal Rinpoche passed into parinirvana, Rigpa had incredible challenges, outer, inner, and secret. And it's still going on. This is an amazing achievement. Of course, I would say it's the blessing of the gurus, dharmapalas, and devotion of the students. Dharma always had a lot of obstacles. I mean, some obstacles are very big. Look at what happened to Nalanda or Takshila universities. It's gone. Look at, Peshawar or, like Afghanistan is sort of the origin of the Tantra maybe, but no trace. Although sometimes I doubt that maybe they are actually the real Dakas and Dakinis because no one can overcome them. The Tibetans, one of the, many centers or what a community fall either when the Lama pass or when there is an obstacle. We have seen this. But Rigpa is still going on, and that is really, really encouraging for the Buddha Dharma. I'm sure you had to have a certain measure of, trying to hold together. Totally understandable. And I would still encourage this. I was just talking with the senior students of Rinpoche that about, ongoing teacher or instructor or facilitator by, facilitating Buddhist teachings and practice with, by the senior students of Rinpoche. But not just today. I keep on hearing that some of the senior students who are actually good at facilitating students, they have a hesitation to do that. I've always been happy whenever I hear that there's this hesitation to, lead and teach. To me, this is so good. In the age where everybody is eager to make a YouTube content, these are actually sign of the real lineage, real teaching, real practice. I think these people need to be encouraged, not just within yourself, but some of the Tibetan, lamas, advisors. We should also try to find a way to create some sort of a structure or some sort of a way. Okay, next one.
In his book, The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, Sogyal Rinpoche says, In Dzogchen, the view is introduced directly to the student by the master, who embodies its complete realization. And so to be able to receive this instruction, the student must have reached the point where he possesses both the openness of mind and the devotion, in capital letters, to which will make him receptive to the true meaning of Dzogchen. What would be your answer to people who joined Rigpa after Sogyal Rinpoche's death, or who didn't have the opportunity to meet him? What place should be given to devotion and how? Of course, other great masters like you come to Rigpa, present the nature of mind and also teach Dzogchen. But my concern is that students may decide to follow these great masters by joining their respective sangha and therefore gradually leave Rigpa. Could you give some recommendations or clarifications on these points?
Okay. Vajrayana practitioner or not Sharvakayana practitioner, you have to take the bodhisattva vow. As for pointing out instructions, Mahasandhi, all of that, right at the beginning, question and answer, I have already said. You know, some you will just get it through that person. And that's, it's personal, totally. And as a Mahasandhi practitioner, you have to practice bodhicitta. Meaning you have to really be concerned of other people's enlightenment. You have to do whatever you can. It could be just making photocopies or cleaning a room. I see, not just Rigpa, but like any monastery or anything like, all this, like a structure, or a community as a vehicle. It's a very, for the beginner bodhisattva practitioner, it's a really easy to benefit others by using this vehicle. Of course, human emotions are involved. Just because, like me, I know, Rinpoche, and then the Khyentse Choku Lodge, and so many times I come here. Every time when there is a European who come to me, who wants to go somewhere to meditate, I go to Rigpa. Even though I'm not a member of a Rigpa, like a sangha or a vision board or anything. So, so I use this vehicle. That's what I'm saying. Especially people who are not, have a little bit of an inclination to things that are a little bit, like, I don't know, like little bit wild kind of character. Yeah, go to Rigpa.
No.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Some people, they believe in things like sitting, like vegetarian, no alcohol, no guru business. I don't send them here. No. But anyway, they never come to me. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that you should really use this as a vehicle, by all means. It's really well established, gone through a big test many times. Okay, the next question, and then I think we should finish it.
Okay. Next question. It is the first time that Siddhartha's intent and the Rigpa Sangha organized your venue in Paris. The collaboration between the two sanghas also took place within the Milinda project for training future teachers. Can you share your vision on how we could make this collaboration even stronger in the future?
Oh, that one you don't have to worry. there is a lot of good things about the way Tibetan function. This is one of them. It's like an Italian, mafia family, I will give you one example. Just the commentary of Chechun Nyingthik by Lerab Lingpa. Just that, the gratitude towards that. How can one just forget easily this man called Lerab Lingpa? Just that. It is so beautiful. In fact, people say that, during those days, there's no recorder. They said that Lerab Lingpa, when he listens to Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche, he basically transcribes it on the spot. It is so beautiful, I don't like to even share it with others. That's how it is. To me, that's my character, basically. It's like, this is for me, not sharing. And it's like amazing. May have read like 40 times, and it's like I'm reading it the first time. Yeah, so there's that sort of family loyalty, like a yakuza, like losing. I think, one more, then we finish.
As you are the reincarnation of Dharma the root master of Sogyal Rinpoche, you play a crucial role in our lineage and in particular for the Rigpa Sangha. Is it possible that you come more often to teach and transmit your wisdom mind to all of us?
I think I've already answered that one, right? Okay, there was a request of transmission of this text, dawning of clear light.
This back of.
Oh. You didn't request me, but I will give the lung of a few sentences of this book. You have to listen to this one. The train came out of the long tunnel into the snow country. The earth lay white under the night sky. The train pulled up at a signal stop. A girl who had been sitting on the other side of the car came over and opened the window in front of Shimamura. The snowy cold poured in. The rest you read.
Et le reste, faut que vous le lisiez.
Such a beautiful book, this one.
C'est un
It's
livre
called
vraiment
Snow
magnifique.
Country by Yasunari Kawabata. But the Japanese don't write like this anymore. If there's any Japanese here, I'm sorry, but you don't write like this. Because like French people, Japanese are also net-flexed. Okay, thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.